Welcome once again, everyone. Cannabis News with Joe Klare. It is January 11th, 2019. The end of another week here at the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Of course, you click the video tab there. You can find the show. A bunch of great articles there as well, social media links, and more. marijuanatimes.org. Today, talking about a new study about veterinarians and their readiness or hesitance to prescribe CBD products to pet owners for their pets, obviously. That's what veterinarians are prescribing things for. Also, a federal judge dismisses a case about cannabis odor, and a little rundown on what people in Texas, what activists in Texas are doing and what they're focusing on this year when it comes to marijuana law reform in the Lone Star State, as they say. But first, before we get to all that, of course, Cannabis News brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Side is spelled C-I-D-E. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals on what you are growing. Be regulatory compliant. Don't use banned pesticides. Just go about growing in a better way overall with Natureside and their wide array of products. Check them out, nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. First story by yours truly from marijuanatimes.org. New study suggests veterinarians are still hesitant to discuss CBD treatments. A recent online survey was conducted by researchers from Colorado State University, North Carolina State University, and the Veterinary Information Network. Collected responses from about 2,130 vets across the country. The quote gauged U.S. veterinarians' knowledge level, views, and experiences related to the use of cannabinoids and the medical treatment of dogs. Roughly 61%, a lot of noise, roughly 61% of respondents felt comfortable discussing CBD with their colleagues. Only 45.5% were comfortable discussing CBD with pet owners that they see. So more than half of veterinarians are hesitant to discuss CBD with pet owners. And to be and people use CBD for their dogs, mainly for things like anxiety and pain, inflammation, stuff like that. And while vets practicing in states with legalized recreational marijuana were more likely to advise their clients and recommend the use of CBD, surprisingly, recent veterinarian graduates were less likely to recommend or prescribe CBD. Basically, the reason for that is that those who now know about CBD, they want to know more about it. 5 years ago, most people didn't know anything about CBD. Most people had never even heard of it. And veterinarians, for that reason, weren't really interested in knowing more about it because it didn't seem like something that was applicable to their skill set, their trade, their profession, whatever. Now that it does, now they're hungry, like many people are, for the information about CBD. And until they get that information, until they get better guidance from like state veterinary associations and groups like that, then they are going to be hesitant to talk to their patient owners, their pet owners, their patient pet owners about CBD. And that is why this next story is from, switch it over there, PressDemocrat.com. Federal judge dismisses Sonoma County neighbor's pioneering lawsuit against cannabis grower. Federal judge has ruled that a group of Petaluma neighbors cannot sue a cannabis company and its lead grower under a federal racketeering and corruption law because bad odors and noise are nuisances that don't cause the kind of measurable financial losses required to pursue the case. Yes, you heard that correctly. They're trying to sue these cannabis growers with the RICO statutes, the statutes that were put in place and used to bring down mafia kingpins in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. They wanted to use that because they don't like the smell of cannabis. U.S. District Judge John Tigor's December 27th ruling halted what may have been the first attempt in California to use the civil portion of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, RICO. Passed in 1970 to combat the mafia, the plaintiffs argued that the operation's sickening cannabis odor and loud noise diminished the value and enjoyment of their properties. The Tigor, in his 11-page decision dismissing the case, wrote that the neighbors' complaints amounted to nuisances and personal injuries, which are, quote, not compensable under RICO. The decision came about 6 weeks after cultivator Carlos Zambrano and his business partners with Green Earth Coffee ceased all operations at the Adobe Road property as part of an agreement with Sonoma County's permitting department, which contend that they have not complied with all local rules. So it's a moot point anyway because the growers that were there are gone. But we're going to see this a lot. I don't like cannabis odor, so I'm going to use some kind of law or sue someone or do something to get it changed. I used to live in a place that was up a hill from a sewage plant. It was up the hill from the river and a sewage plant. And the mixture of the sewage plant mixed with the smell of the river, and every morning that I had my windows open, if the weather called for it, then I would smell that. That's the smell that I would wake up to. River plus sewage plant. But that wasn't enough, because that was to the north of me. Now, if the wind was coming from the east, I got another smell along with that, because there was a wild flavors factory to the east of where we live. So the sewage place is north. The Wild Flavors Factory is east, so if the wind is right, they combine, so you get like weird, like perfumey type flavors. Like it's like they were going for food flavors or something like that, like food odors. But they just didn't quite get it. Like you can tell that it's supposed to mimic like what food would smell like, but it really doesn't. So all that mixed together. So some days I woke up and it smelled like a bucket of crap. Somebody put a bucket of crap, they threw a catfish in it, and they dumped like 2 gallons of perfume in it, and that's what I woke up to. Sickening cannabis odor. Give me a break. You smell all kinds of stuff. You go down the highway, you smell all kinds of stuff. You get behind a public bus, you smell all kinds of stuff. Bad odors are everywhere. God, people whine about so much, and you're going to see this everywhere. Oh, my neighbor, he's growing cannabis. I don't like the smell. Do something about it. No, get over it. Get over it. Prove that's making you sick. Sickening cannabis odor. It's dumb. Prove that's making you sick. Prove that it's destroying your life. And I bet you can't. Because it's not. Because you're a ridiculous person. Stop it. This next story. The Dallas News. The Dallas Morning News. What new marijuana laws might pass in Texas this year? Well, we often get a lot of requests from people, especially I see them in the YouTube comments every once in a while asking about Texas. Well, here you go. Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, a coalition that includes NORML and a couple dozen other groups, is prioritizing 2 bills this year, one that would decriminalize possession of small amounts of marijuana and another to legalize marijuana for medical use. Representative Joe Moody, Democrat from El Paso, is sponsoring the decriminalization bill for the 3rd time. 2016, more than 66,000 Texans were arrested for marijuana possession, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety. Moody hopes to cut that number down by replacing the criminal penalty for possession of an ounce or less of marijuana with a fine. It's fiscally responsible, Moody said of the bill. Senator Jose Menendez is sponsoring legislation to expand the state's so-called compassionate use law. Currently, only Texans diagnosed with intractable epilepsy are allowed to use cannabis that contains low levels of THC. Menendez's bill would dramatically expand this law by legalizing medical marijuana for Texans with certain other debilitating conditions, including cancer, glaucoma, HIV, Alzheimer's, PTSD, autism, chronic pain, nausea, and muscle spasm. So basically taking the limited CBD-only law that's in Texas, like there is in many states, and expanding that to cover many more ailments. Patients should not be arrested for using medicine that is legal in every state that borders Texas, including conservative states like Oklahoma and Arkansas. So Menendez, Democrat from San Antonio, said in a recent statement, the legislature must act and provide medical freedom to those who need it the most. You can imagine with the size and the population of a state like Texas, almost 30 million people, that's millions of people that could benefit from medical marijuana and not just a limited CBD law, which I'm sure is helpful for, dozens, maybe even hundreds of people, and that's great. But you're talking about a state with 30 million people, that's not going to cut it. Like I said, we're talking millions of people that can benefit from medical marijuana. And I can't believe we're still having the discussion about medical marijuana. I mean, I thought we were, in some states, approval for medical marijuana is over 80%. It doesn't seem like something that continues to be discussed, and yet here we are. So if you live in Texas, start contacting people, getting involved. There's all kinds of play. I'm sure Texas is full of groups. I know Dallas Fort Worth NORML, there's Texas NORML, The name of the group that I just said, Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy. Get involved, make your voice heard, all of that stuff. And thank you for watching and listening to Cannabis News and spreading the truth about cannabis with this show. Go enjoy the weekend. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll see you next week right here on Cannabis News.